Grab your bags and get out, you shameless gold digger. This mansion isn't your class," said her mother-in-law, loud, proud, and certain, pointing to the 5 designer suitcases neatly placed outside the gates. But what she didn't realize was devastating. The very mansion she was defending wasn't her son's at all. It belonged to the woman she had just thrown out. And what unfolded next silenced them both forever. Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more stories like this. The evening sun dipped low, spilling its golden light across the wide driveway of the Bennett estate. The mansion stood tall and elegant, its glass windows glimmering in the fading light. It was the kind of home that made passers-by stop to admire it, a symbol of quiet wealth and timeless design. Mary Bennett's car pulled slowly through the gates. She was tired from a long day at her architectural firm, her mind still full of sketches, deadlines, and phone calls. All she wanted was a hot shower, a cup of tea, and the comfort of her own living room. But the sight waiting for her on the driveway froze her in place. Lined up neatly outside the iron gates were 5 expensive suitcases, hers. Each one was familiar, each one carefully chosen years ago when she had traveled to Paris for work. They weren't just suitcases, they were reminders of her independence, her success, her hard-earned life. And now, they stood like abandoned children in the open air, lined up as if waiting to be collected by some stranger. Next to them stood Evelyn Thompson, Rowan's mother. Evelyn was dressed sharply, as always. Her pearl necklace glimmered under the sun, her lips painted in bold red, her posture stiff with authority. She clutched her designer handbag tightly, her chin lifted in a way that suggested superiority. She didn't look at Mary with kindness. She didn't even look at her with civility. Her eyes, sharp and proud, carried only disdain. Mary parked her car quietly, opened the door, and stepped out. Her heels clicked against the driveway stones. She closed the car door slowly, her expression calm though her chest tightened with unease. "What's going on here?" Mary asked softly, her voice level but firm. Evelyn's lips curled into a cold smile. She took a step closer, pointing at the row of suitcases as though they were evidence of a crime. "What's going on?" Evelyn's voice was loud, bold, and full of pride. "What's going on, Mary, is that you've finally been shown your place." Mary frowned slightly. "My place?" "Yes," Evelyn snapped, her words sharp as broken glass. "Out there. Outside these gates. Not in this house. Not in this family. And certainly not in my son's life." Mary stood still, her eyes calm, though inside her heart beat faster. She had always known Evelyn didn't like her, but this was something else, something public, humiliating, and deliberate. "You've packed my bags," Mary said quietly, glancing at the suitcases. "Without asking me." Evelyn's laugh was high and cruel. "Ask you? Why would I ask you? This house is not yours, Mary. This life is not yours. You walked in here like some queen, but all you've ever been is a low-class gold digger. Living off my son's hard work, pretending you belong." Mary's lips parted slightly, as if to speak, but Evelyn raised her voice louder, making sure the neighbors could hear. Several curtains twitched in the nearby houses. Someone even stepped out onto their porch to watch. "Pick your bags and leave," Evelyn shouted, her finger stabbing the air in Mary's direction. "You don't deserve to breathe the air in this mansion. It is not your level. You don't belong here, Mary. Not now, not ever." For a long moment, silence hung between them. Only the rustle of the trees and the distant sound of a car driving by broke the stillness. Mary lowered her gaze to the suitcases, her mind calm though her stomach knotted. She wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it, to shout at the arrogance, but instead, she remained quiet. Quiet had always been her shield. Finally, she lifted her eyes to Evelyn's triumphant face. "Evelyn," she said softly, almost kindly, "are you sure you want to do this?" Evelyn sneered. "Don't speak to me like you have the right to decide anything. This is my son's house, his hard-earned life, and I will not let a woman like you destroy it." Get out while I'm still letting you walk out with your pride intact. Mary tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. She said nothing more, and that silence seemed to infuriate Evelyn more than any argument could have. You think keeping quiet makes you strong? Evelyn hissed. It doesn't. It makes you pathetic. You've fooled everyone long enough. But tonight, Mary Bennet, everyone will see you for what you are, a parasite. As Evelyn's words cut through the air, the sound of a car engine approached from behind. A black Mercedes rolled into the driveway, sleek and polished. Rowan Thompson stepped out, tall and handsome in his tailored suit, his tie loosened from the day. He carried himself with the easy charm that had always drawn people to him. For years, Mary had loved that charm, that smile, that voice that could soften any argument. But tonight, as he looked between his mother and his wife, his expression was unreadable. "Rowan," Evelyn said quickly, hurrying to his side. She grabbed his arm as if she had been waiting for this exact moment. "Rowan, thank God you're here. I've done it. I've protected you. I've finally shown her the door." Rowan's brow furrowed. "What are you talking about, Mother?" "She's been using you, Rowan," Evelyn said, her voice urgent, theatrical. "Leeching off everything you've built. But I've stopped it. Look, her bags are packed. She's leaving. She won't drag you down anymore." Mary's eyes met Rowan's. They were calm, steady, but there was a flicker of pain in them. "Rowan," she said softly, "is this what you want too?" Rowan hesitated. His gaze shifted between the suitcases, his mother's eager face, and Mary's quiet strength. His jaw tightened. He opened his mouth, but Evelyn cut in before he could speak. "Rowan, don't let her twist things. Don't let her play victim. You know what she is. She's nothing but a gold digger. You've worked so hard for this life, and she's been living off your sweat." Mary's lips parted, but she didn't speak. She waited. She wanted to see if Rowan would correct his mother, if he would speak the truth she had protected for so long. Rowan sighed, running a hand through his hair. Maybe it's better if you go for a while, Mary," he said at last, his voice low, uncertain. Mary's eyes widened slightly, though her face remained calm. "Go," she repeated. Rowan avoided her gaze. "Just for some time. Until things cool down. My mother, she only wants what's best for me." Evelyn's smile grew wide, victorious. "Exactly. Finally, Rowan, you see the truth." For a long moment, the world seemed to still. The last light of the sun faded, leaving shadows creeping across the driveway. The neighbors' eyes remained fixed on the scene, watching as though it were a stage play. Mary took a slow breath, her voice soft but clear. "So this is it, Rowan? After everything? You'll let your mother throw me out of this house, our house?" Rowan shifted uncomfortably. His voice wavered. "Mary, don't make this harder than it already is. Just give us some space, please." The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. Evelyn's eyes glittered with triumph. Rowan's shoulders slumped with guilt, but he didn't take it back. And Mary, standing tall in the fading light, looked at them both with a calm that was almost frightening. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She only asked one last question, her voice carrying the quiet weight of truth. "Are you absolutely sure about this, Rowan?" His answer came too quickly, too weakly, and it sealed the moment in stone. "Yes." Evelyn exhaled in delight. Rowan turned away, unable to face the storm he felt building. And Mary, silent as ever, only nodded once. The first crack had appeared in the life Rowan thought he controlled. Neither he nor Evelyn knew yet just how much that crack would widen. The silence after Rowan's words was suffocating. Mary stood still, her eyes fixed on him, searching for something, some sign that he didn't mean what he said, that he would take the words back. But he didn't. Rowan shifted awkwardly, his hands in his pockets, his eyes downcast. He couldn't even look at her. Evelyn, meanwhile, basked in her victory. Her smile stretched wide, smug and cruel. She turned to the neighbors who still peered from windows and doorways, her voice deliberately loud. "You see," she announced, as though she were addressing an audience. "My son knows the truth now. This woman tried to fool him, but she won't fool anyone else." The words sliced through Mary like a knife, but her face remained composed. Years of being quiet, years of letting others think what they wanted, had trained her to hide her pain behind stillness. Mary's eyes moved back to Rowan. "You agree with her?" she asked softly. "That I don't belong here?" Rowan rubbed the back of his neck. His voice came low, hesitant. "Mary, she's my mother. You know how she is. I don't want any fights. Maybe it's better if you just give us some time. Space. Until she calms down." Mary tilted her head slightly. "Space. From your wife. In her own home." Her words hung in the air like smoke. Rowan flinched, but he didn't correct himself. He didn't correct his mother. Evelyn stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the stone driveway. "Don't waste your breath on him, Mary," she said coldly. "Rowan doesn't need to explain himself to you. You're finished here. Take your bags and leave. Don't come crawling back later, because the door will be locked." Mary's eyes flickered to the suitcases again. 5 of them, lined up like soldiers on parade. Not a single one out of place. Evelyn had packed them with care, and Mary knew why. Evelyn wanted the humiliation to be neat, orderly, undeniable. She wanted Mary to stand outside the gates with her possessions, to be seen by every neighbor, to be remembered as the woman who was thrown out of her husband's house. But Mary remained calm. She didn't argue. She didn't plead. She only took a step forward, closing the distance between herself and Rowan. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the weight of it made Rowan finally look at her. "Rowan," she said, "are you sure about this?" His lips parted, his eyes conflicted, but Evelyn's sharp presence loomed beside him. "Yes," he muttered, barely audible. Evelyn clapped her hands once, as though the matter were settled. "Good. That's the end of it then. Rowan, go inside. Leave her here. She can call a taxi or drag those bags wherever she wants." Mary straightened her shoulders. For the first time that evening, she let her gaze sweep over both of them with something sharper than silence. Something steady, immovable, and quietly dangerous. "You want me gone," she said, her voice calm but laced with steel. "You'll get your answer soon enough." Her words unsettled Rowan, but Evelyn laughed dismissively. "Empty threats. You'll leave just like the rest of them. Women like you always do." Mary didn't reply. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. Instead, she walked slowly toward the gates, her hand brushing across the polished handles of her suitcases as though she were only checking their presence. Then she stopped, turned back once, and looked directly at Evelyn. "You don't know me at all," she said quietly. Then she walked past them, not toward the street but toward the front door of the mansion itself. Evelyn's mouth fell open in outrage. Rowan called her name, confused, but Mary didn't stop. The storm was coming, but it wasn't Mary who would be swept away by it. The foyer of the mansion was wide and gleaming, with marble floors and tall chandeliers that caught the last of the day's light. Evelyn stormed in behind Mary, her heels clicking furiously. "Where do you think you're going?" Evelyn snapped. "I told you, you're not welcome here." Mary didn't answer. She walked calmly to the oak table in the hall where she often set her briefcase after work. Today, her briefcase was exactly where she had left it. She opened it slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a neat leather folder. Evelyn scoffed. "What is this? More of your nonsense. You can wave around whatever you like, Mary, but it won't change anything. This house belongs to my son." Mary placed the folder on the table and flipped it open. Inside, clear plastic sleeves held a series of documents, each page neat, official, undeniable. The first was a deed, stamped and signed. Rowan entered behind them, Confusion etched into his face. "Mary, what are you doing?" She looked at him for a long moment, then turned the folder toward him. "Read it." Rowan frowned, stepping closer. He looked down, his eyes scanning the paper. At first his expression was blank. Then his brows furrowed. His lips parted slightly as he read again, slower this time. "Mary, this is—" "Yes," Mary said calmly. "It's the deed to this house. Signed years ago. Before I ever met you." Evelyn's face drained of color. "That's impossible. That's a lie." Mary pulled out another page, sliding it across the table. "Mortgage receipts. All paid. In my name. You can check the bank records if you like." Rowan's hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. Blueprints with her signature. Payment records with her name. Tax documents. Even photographs of her during the construction process, wearing a hard hat, standing with contractors, inspecting the foundation before the first walls were raised. Evelyn shook her head violently. "No. No, I don't believe this. Rowan, don't listen to her. She's tricking you. She must have forged all of this." Mary's voice remained steady. "Forged? Ask the lawyers. Ask the contractors. Ask the bank. Every person involved can tell you whose house this is. It isn't Rowan's. It never was. It's mine. I built it. I paid for it. Every brick, every nail, every pane of glass. You are standing inside the house I designed and bought with my own money." The silence that followed was crushing. Rowan's eyes darted between the papers and Mary's face. His lips moved, but no words came out. Evelyn stumbled back, her hands shaking. You mean," Rowan finally whispered, his voice faint. "This whole time, all these years?" Mary looked at him, her calm expression unchanging. "Yes. All these years. This house was mine. You asked me to let people think it was yours. To protect your pride. And I agreed. I stayed silent for your sake. But tonight, your silence, your cowardice, turned my silence into weakness. And I won't allow that anymore." Evelyn's voice cracked into a shrill scream. "No. You're lying. This is my son's house." Mary turned her gaze on her, her voice sharp as glass. "Your son has no house. And you just tried to throw the real owner onto the street." Evelyn's face crumpled in disbelief, her arrogance collapsing into a pale, trembling mask. Rowan stood frozen, the folder of evidence heavy in his hands, his pride shattered. For the first time that night, Evelyn had no words. And Rowan, who had always hidden behind charm, was left speechless in the home that was never his. Mary, calm and quiet, finally reclaimed the voice she had given away. Rowan's fingers clutched the folder like a man holding a burning coal. His knuckles were pale, his lips pressed thin. Evelyn stood beside him, trembling with outrage, but Mary? Mary was calm. Her silence pressed against them harder than any scream. Finally Rowan looked at her, desperation flickering in his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me you still had all this? Why didn't you show anyone?" Mary's lips curved into a sad, tired smile. "Because you asked me not to, Rowan. Don't you remember?" Rowan blinked. His breath caught. He did remember. The memory rose, unbidden, and the walls of the mansion seemed to dissolve around him. He was back in that small restaurant 6 years ago, back when they had been newly married. Mary sat across the table, her eyes shining with excitement. She had just bought the land on the edge of town, the land where this mansion now stood. "I'll design it myself," she had said, her voice brimming with vision. "Not just for me, for us. A home where every line, every corner, carries meaning. A place built on strength, on patience. You'll see, Rowan. It will be beautiful." Rowan had smiled, but beneath his smile was something he never spoke aloud: fear. At that time, his career was stumbling. His business ventures failed more often than they succeeded. His bank account was always one step away from empty. And yet, when people looked at him, Rowan Thompson, charming, ambitious, they still believed he was destined for greatness. But sitting across from Mary that night, hearing her plans, he had felt small. Smaller than he'd ever admit. "Mary," he had said quietly, reaching across the table to touch her hand. "Listen. When people see that house, when they see how grand it is, they'll think it's mine. They'll think I built it. And if they know the truth, that it's you, they'll laugh at me." Mary had frowned, confused. "Why would they laugh? You're my husband. What's mine is yours." Rowan had swallowed, shame burning his throat. "But it matters. A man is supposed to provide. A man is supposed to stand taller than his wife. Please, Mary, don't tell anyone it's yours. Let them believe it's mine. Let me have that pride." Mary had studied him for a long moment, then nodded softly. "If that's what you need, Rowan, I'll keep quiet. I don't need the world to know. I just need you to be happy." Back in the present, Rowan's knees weakened as the weight of that memory crushed him. Mary's voice cut through his haze, calm and steady. "I gave you my silence, Rowan. 4 years. I let people think I was the lucky one, that I had landed a rich husband. I let them believe this house was your success, not mine. I let your mother sneer at me, call me a gold digger, while I stayed quiet. I endured all of it, for you." Her eyes met his, sharp and unwavering. "But tonight you stood there and let her call me worthless. You stood there and let her throw my bags into the street. You stood there and told me to leave my own home. And that, Rowan, is where my silence ends." Rowan's lips trembled. "Mary, I didn't mean." But she cut him off with a raised hand. "You did mean it. You chose her pride over my dignity. You chose weakness over truth. And now you'll live with it." Evelyn finally found her voice, though it came out shaky. "You're twisting things. My son didn't mean to." Mary's gaze snapped to her, cold as ice. "Enough. You've spoken enough for both of you. This house was never yours, Evelyn. And from tonight, neither of you will have a place in it." Her words fell like a gavel. The judgment was final. The next morning, the mansion was buzzing with activity. Mary had made one phone call, and that was all it took. By 10 a.m., her lawyer, Mr. Collins, stood in the foyer with a stack of freshly signed papers. He was an older man with silver hair and a calm, professional air. Behind him stood 2 security guards, men who had worked for Mary during the mansion's construction and who knew exactly whose orders they followed. Rowan and Evelyn stood at the bottom of the grand staircase, both pale, both stunned. "This is outrageous," Evelyn shouted, pointing a trembling finger at the lawyer. "You can't just throw us out. My son lives here. This is his home." Mr. Collins adjusted his glasses and spoke with deliberate politeness. "Mrs. Thompson, according to the deed and legal documents, this property belongs solely to Mrs. Mary Bennet. Legally and officially, neither you nor your son has any claim over it. As of this morning, you are trespassing." Evelyn gasped. "Trespassing? How dare you?" Mary descended the staircase slowly, her presence commanding. She wore a simple cream dress, her hair tied neatly back. There was no anger on her face, only quiet authority. "Mother," Rowan began weakly, turning toward her, "maybe we can talk this through." But Mary interrupted, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "There's nothing left to talk about, Rowan. You made your choice last night. This is the consequence." Rowan stepped forward, his voice desperate. "Mary, please. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just trying to keep the peace. I thought if you left for a while, things would calm down. I never wanted this." Mary's eyes were steady on his. "And when she called me a gold digger, what did you do? When she told me to leave my own home, what did you say? You said yes, Rowan. You told me to go. That was your truth. Rowan opened his mouth, but no words came. Evelyn clung to him, her nails digging into his arm. Don't let her do this, Rowan. This is your house, your life. No, Mary said sharply. It never was. Mr. Collins gestured toward the guards. Please escort them to collect their belongings. They are required to vacate the premises within the hour. Evelyn erupted. This is theft. This is betrayal. You can't do this to your own husband. Mary's gaze didn't waver. I'm not doing this to my husband. I'm doing this to a man who betrayed me. The guards stepped forward. Rowan looked like he might collapse, his pride crumbling under the weight of truth. Evelyn, however, shrieked and clawed as they guided her toward the staircase. This isn't over, she spat. You think you've won, but you'll regret this, Mary Bennet. You'll regret ever crossing me. Mary's voice remained calm. I don't regret anything. Within the hour, Rowan and Evelyn were escorted out of the gates with hastily packed bags of their own. For the first time, they stood on the outside of the mansion's iron fence, looking in, not as family, not as owners, but as strangers. Rowan turned back once, his eyes pleading. Mary, he whispered. But the gates shut between them with a heavy finality. Mary stood at the top of the driveway, watching, her posture tall and unyielding. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply turned and walked back into her house, the house she built, the house that was hers. The apartment was small. Too small. Rowan Thompson sat on the edge of a sagging couch, staring at the stained wall in front of him. The space smelled faintly of dust and old paint, a far cry from the clean, polished scent of lemon and marble that had filled the mansion. The single ceiling light flickered occasionally, casting shadows that made the room look even smaller than it was. He had never lived like this. Not since before Mary. The days after the eviction blurred together. He had carried his mother's bags up the narrow staircase, feeling the stares of strangers in the apartment block as Evelyn complained loudly about how unlivable the place was. She had demanded he do something every single day. But Rowan had nothing to give. The friends who used to drink with him at the mansion's bar? They had stopped calling. The business contacts who once praised him? Silent. The neighbors who once admired him? Now whispered about how he had been living in a house that wasn't his. His pride was shredded. Evelyn sat across the room, perched on a worn-out chair, her voice sharp and endless. I warned you, Rowan. I told you from the beginning she wasn't good enough for you. Look at us now. Living like beggars in this showbox. And it's all her fault. That manipulative woman. That snake. Rowan pressed his palms against his eyes. Mother, stop. No. Evelyn's voice rose. I will not stop. You let her humiliate us. You let her throw us out like trash. And you stood there and let her. What kind of son are you? What kind of man? Rowan's hands dropped. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. You think I don't know what I did? He snapped suddenly. You think I don't replay it every second in my head? I stood there and told my wife to leave her own home. I told the woman who gave me everything that she wasn't welcome. I destroyed the only good thing I ever had. Evelyn recoiled, her lips parting in shock. For the first time, Rowan's anger wasn't aimed at Mary, it was aimed at himself. His voice broke as he whispered, I had everything. And I lost it because I couldn't stand the thought of people knowing the truth. I traded her love for my pride. And now look at me. Sitting in this dump. He buried his face in his hands. Evelyn's eyes narrowed, her anger turning desperate. Don't speak like that. She doesn't love you. She never did. She used you for your name, your... Rowan's head snapped up, his eyes blazing. Name? What name? My name meant nothing without her. I was nothing without her. She built that house. She built that life. And I let the world think it was mine. I let you poison me into thinking silence was strength. But it wasn't. It was weakness. And I was the weakest of all. The room fell silent. For the first time in his life, Rowan saw his mother not as a protector but as a chain. A chain that had kept him bound, whispering poison in his ear, feeding his pride until it consumed him. Evelyn sputtered, trying to regain control. "Rowan, you can't mean." But he turned away, staring out the cracked window at the grey city skyline. "It's too late, Mother. She's gone. And we'll never get her back." He didn't say another word that night. But his silence was no longer the silence of pride, it was the silence of a man broken by regret. While Rowan's world crumbled, Mary's world began to bloom. It started quietly. The story of her mansion, the house she had designed, built, and owned, spread quickly through whispers, then newspapers, then magazines. Architects and journalists wrote about her vision, about the woman who had silently built a masterpiece while others dismissed her. Within weeks, her name was everywhere. Mary Bennet, the architect of her own destiny. The mansion itself became a symbol. Invitations poured in, architectural galas, design conferences, charity events. Everyone wanted to see the woman who had quietly carried such strength. On the night of her first gala, Mary stood before her mirror in a flowing black gown. Her hair was swept elegantly to one side, her jewelry subtle but striking. She looked at her reflection for a long time, studying the woman who stared back. This was not the quiet wife who once swallowed her pride for another's comfort. This was Mary Bennet, the woman who built her own house, her own life, her own name. Her assistant, Claire, appeared in the doorway. "Miss Bennet, the car is waiting." Mary nodded, picking up her clutch. As she stepped into the grand hall of the mansion, her heels clicking against the marble floor, she allowed herself a small smile. The house no longer felt like a cage of silence, it felt like a crown. The gala was held in the city's largest ballroom. Chandeliers sparkled overhead, tables glittered with silverware, and cameras flashed as soon as Mary entered. The room hushed for a moment, all eyes turning toward her. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "That's her. The architect of the Bennet mansion. She's even more striking in person." Mary carried herself with quiet grace, her every movement controlled, her every glance purposeful. She shook hands with industry leaders, spoke about her projects, and answered questions with calm confidence. When she stepped onto the stage to deliver her speech, the room fell into reverent silence. "I once believed silence was strength," Mary began, her voice carrying across the hall. "I believed that if I stayed quiet, if I let others take the credit, it would keep the peace. But I've learned that silence can also be a prison. And tonight, I stand before you not as someone's shadow, not as someone's wife, but as myself. This house, my house, was more than a building. It was proof that patience, vision, and resilience can build not just walls, but legacies." Applause thundered through the hall. Cameras flashed. Mary stood tall, her heart steady. Later, as she mingled among the guests, one man raised his glass toward her. "To Mary Bennet, the woman who built more than a mansion. She built a story that inspires us all." Mary smiled, accepting the toast. And for the first time in years, she felt truly seen. Back at the mansion, as the night wound down, Mary walked through the quiet halls. The chandeliers glowed softly, the air rich with warmth. She paused in front of the tall windows, looking out at the sprawling gardens. Once, she had built this house for love. Now, she realized, she had built it for something greater, herself. Her phone buzzed. A message. It was from Rowan. "Mary, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please, can we talk?" Mary stared at the screen for a long moment. A part of her remembered the man she once loved, the laughter they had shared, the dreams they had once spoken of. But the memory of his silence the night before Evelyn's cruelty was louder. She set the phone down on the table and turned away. Her silence now was no longer submission. It was power. And as she climbed the stairs of the house she built, her heart was lighter than it had ever been. The night air was cold. Rowan's old car, a second-hand sedan with a dented door, rolled slowly down the quiet lane that led to the Bennett mansion. Evelyn sat in the passenger seat, wrapped in a thick shawl. Her face, once always powdered and perfect, looked drawn and tired under the glow of the street lamps. The months of cramped apartment living had worn on her. She had tried to keep her pride intact, but bitterness clung to her like a second skin. Rowan gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles pale. He had resisted coming here, but Evelyn had insisted. Just to see, she had said. To remind ourselves that she doesn't deserve it. But as the car slowed, Rowan felt a familiar ache in his chest. The mansion was alive. Its tall windows glowed with warm golden light, spilling onto the manicured lawns. Cars lined the driveway, sleek black sedans, expensive sports cars, and chauffeur-driven limousines. The air thrummed with soft music drifting from inside, mixed with the sound of laughter. Mary was hosting again. Rowan parked the car across the street. They sat in silence, staring at the world that had once been theirs, or at least, what Rowan had once let himself believe was his. Through the tall glass windows, he could see people moving elegantly inside, men in tuxedos, women in flowing gowns. Waiters moved gracefully with trays of champagne. And there, in the center of it all, was Mary. She wore a deep emerald gown that shimmered beneath the chandeliers. Her hair was swept elegantly to one side, her smile calm and radiant as she spoke to a group of guests. Every eye seemed to gravitate toward her. Rowan's chest tightened. He remembered the days when that smile was his, when she looked at him like he was her world. But now she shone without him, brighter than ever. Beside him, Evelyn let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Look at her, parading around like a queen. All those people, hanging on her every word. She's nothing without you, Rowan. Nothing. But Rowan's eyes never left Mary. His voice came low, almost broken. No, Mother. She was always everything. I was the nothing. Evelyn turned sharply toward him, her face twisted in anger. Don't you dare say that. She ruined us. She humiliated us. She stole. She didn't steal anything, Rowan cut in, his voice stronger now. She built it. Every brick, every window, every corner of that house. It was always hers. And I let the world believe otherwise. I let my pride stand on her shoulders. And when she needed me most, I sided with you. His throat tightened as he whispered, I destroyed my marriage with my own silence. Through the window, Mary laughed softly at something a guest said. Her head tilted back gracefully, her eyes glowing with life. Rowan felt the sting of tears, but he blinked them away. That should have been my life, he murmured. That laughter, that home, that light. Evelyn sneered. She doesn't deserve you, Rowan. She never did. Rowan turned to his mother slowly, his gaze heavy with exhaustion. No, Mother. I didn't deserve her. Evelyn froze, her mouth snapping shut. For the first time, Rowan's words carried no hesitation, no weakness. Just truth. He turned back toward the mansion. For a long moment, he simply sat there, memorizing the sight of her. Knowing it was the last time he would allow himself to linger at the edges of her world. Finally, he started the car. Evelyn sputtered in protest, but Rowan spoke firmly. We don't belong here anymore. The car pulled away from the glowing mansion, leaving the sound of music and laughter behind. And as the house grew smaller in the rearview mirror, Rowan felt the weight of his choices press heavier than ever. He had become an outsider in the life he once pretended to own. The mansion was quiet again. The gala had ended hours ago, and the guests had gone home. The chandeliers glowed dimly now, their light soft against the marble floors. Mary walked barefoot through the halls, her gown trailing gently behind her. She carried a glass of wine, sipping it slowly as she moved through the home she had built. She paused in the grand living room. The tall windows reflected her figure, making her appear doubled, Mary the architect, and Mary the woman reborn. She sank into the velvet armchair near the fire, letting the silence settle around her. For years, This silence had felt like loneliness. Tonight, it felt like peace. Her thoughts drifted to Rowan, to Evelyn, to the night her bags were thrown onto the driveway. The humiliation, the sting of betrayal. For a moment, her chest tightened. But then she remembered the look on Rowan's face when she revealed the deed. The shock, the regret, the collapse of his pride. Her silence had once been a gift she gave him. Tonight, her silence was her victory. Mary rose from the chair and walked toward the study. She opened the doors and entered the room where her blueprints still lay rolled in neat stacks. On the wall hung a framed photograph, Mary in a hard hat, smiling proudly beside the unfinished foundation of the mansion. She touched the frame gently, her fingers tracing the edges. "This house," she whispered, "was always mine." Her voice echoed faintly in the empty study. It wasn't revenge she had found. It wasn't triumph over Rowan or Evelyn. It was something deeper, quieter, the realization that she had never needed their validation. Her worth had been built into these walls, into the very bones of the mansion, long before they ever doubted her. She sat at the desk, pulling out a fresh sheet of paper. Her pen glided across it as she began sketching, not for a client, not for work, but for herself. Another house. Another vision. Another creation. Her phone buzzed beside her. She glanced at it. A message. "Rowan again. I still love you. Please, just one chance." Mary stared at the words for a long time. Her heart stirred faintly, a memory of what they once were. But she set the phone down without replying. Some silences didn't need breaking. Instead, she looked back at her sketch. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. Through the tall windows, the night sky stretched wide, filled with stars. The mansion stood tall and unshaken, a testament not to love lost, but to strength found. Mary leaned back, closing her eyes, feeling the weight of her journey settle into something steady. "My silence was never weakness," she whispered to herself. "It was the foundation of my strength." And with that, she returned to her work, quiet, focused, and unbreakable. Outside, the mansion glowed softly in the night, standing as more than just a house. It was a voice, a story, a monument to the woman who built it, and to the silence that had spoken louder than any words ever could. If you were drawn into Mary's journey from humiliation to power, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story where silence, betrayal, and justice collide. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Mary's place?